LUMIX Live this week. Got some fun stuff to talk about today. I'm going to actually be going over pretty much all of LUMIX Lab, specifically about LUTs, because there's been a lot of conversations that I've been kind of trying to help out with on some of the different forums, and it's just honestly, it's easier to do a video about it, and then I can link and I'll make sure I got timestamps in it and everything there. So yeah, we're going to talk about LUTs with the LUMIX cameras, the LUMIX Lab app, how you can actually use the app to get the LUTs assigned properly, because one of the things I think a lot of people... Oh, is my audio very low? My audio levels haven't changed since the last one, but let me double check here. Check. Testing, test, check. Am I moving the wrong one? Check. That's odd. Hang on one second. The last one. Why is it? I know why. How's that sound, everybody? Ooh, I might be blowing a bunch of people out. 2 seconds, y'all. See if this catches up. How's that sound, everybody? Hey, there we go. All right, yeah, that sounds a heck of a lot better. Let me just fix this level because I did tweak it a little bit. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, you're all right. I ended up audio purchased by Temu. Yeah, no, that was my bad. I changed a bunch of my stuff around because if you watched last week, I switched over that I'm streaming now in anamorphic here, and I just had to change all my scenes up and settings, and I just forgot to change my microphone back. So hopefully everything sounds a heck of a lot better now. But where was I? Let me just restart. Hi everybody, welcome to LUMIX Live this week. We are going to be talking about LUMIX Lab and kind of going over primarily working with LUTs. There's been a lot of conversations that I've been trying to support as much as I can in chat with how do you get them on the camera, what kind of settings you need to use, how do you prevent having the wrong LUT applied to the wrong color profile. So we're going to go through that. I'm going to show you how to do that in LUMIX Lab and like what kind of steps you want to do to make sure, and also some of the things to make sure of that you kind of pay attention to when you are looking to get your LUT set up into the system. So yeah, I've got my S1R Mark II hooked up. I've got LUMIX Lab set up so that we're going to be able to, you know, kind of go through that. And like I said last week, if you like this look, this is with the Sirui 50mm 1.6 anamorphic lens that I'm using. So bringing it into OBS and then just having OBS do the, or in this case Streamlabs, having Streamlabs do the D-squeeze for it. So pretty set. 50mm is a little tight for me because of my height, and I can't really lower my chair much more, but I like it because, you know, we get the classic lens flares. But yeah. If you are new to LUMIX Live, this is a weekly broadcast, well, now returned to weekly broadcast that we do, where we talk about the cameras, we talk about specs, we answer your questions. So throughout the stream, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. You can tag at LUMIX USA. We'll try to answer as many of them as I can today between, you know, doing the demo for LUMIX Lab. But yeah, this is a platform for you to get answers directly from the brand. So I will always try to answer as much of them as I can. And yeah, we kind of just do that as much on a weekly basis as we can. But before I go into actually talking about LUMIX Lab, I want to remind y'all about LUMIX Pro services. Here in the US, we have the Red and the Platinum tier. So if you're purchasing a new camera or you've purchased a new camera, make sure to use the QR code down below. get yourself registered on Lumix Pro Service. It is free for the red tier. That gets you your 3-year manufacturer warranty just by registering. But if you're someone who likes a little bit of extra level service and support, you can always upgrade into Platinum. That is a paid tier. That gets you 2-day repairs with next day shipping both ways. It gets you your annual sensor cleanings, lens calibrations, firmware updates, all that kind of stuff if you don't want to do some of that stuff by yourself. You also get access to a member hotline, so if you're someone who prefers to speak to service and support, you have access to it there as well. And it just gives you a direct portal in for the LUMIX product service and support, so you don't have to go through the general Panasonic service and support. So I highly encourage you, if you haven't already, get yourself registered on that. We have it in the US. Down in the description below, there are links to what is available in other regions for the global portal, so you can always take a look there and see what's available to you. Just as a reminder, if you do have questions or things that you want me to address on the stream, question-wise, just make sure to tag at LUMIX USA. This way I can see it on my side, and then I can try to address it. So let's just see how we got going on here. I'm going to get this one right out of the way. DJ says, event at the 13th, what can you say about it? Just, you'll have to tune in. Link, we have our stream link up as well for that. So, I was wondering if the team could bring the special features of the S5 IIX to the S5 II with a paid firmware upgrade. No. The S5 Mark II was built as the tool that was designed to not have the higher end video functionality. If you need those things, you got to go up to an X or, S1R2. The S5 II is the, much more photo oriented, take out a lot of that high end video stuff. So if those are things that you need, that's why the X exists. We've been pretty clear about that from the launch of those cameras. So that's just kind of where that is. So, let's see here. Liking the music. Yep. We've had that. And I actually want to probably change the intro music. We've had that intro music for, 3 years now, I think, at this point. It's probably time to refresh it. Audio issues, questions, things like that. Tell us about LUMIX Flow app being compatible with S5 II. It will be. I just don't have a date or time yet when that update is going to be published. But it is going to come, so don't worry. It will get it. I just don't have details on timing when that's going to be available. And I left my office TV on. Let's turn that off. Anamorphic is wild. I love that cinematic look. It's an interesting thing here. Tom, Anamorphic is fun, but it really doesn't work for talking head style cast. It can. I think this is just everyone's different personal preferences for it, but that's kind of the cool thing about it, is that there's not really one take on any of this stuff. Is it not possible to get LUMIX Flow for the GH6? I don't think so. I think the revision of that engine might not be compatible with the stuff needed for Flow, but I'd have to confirm that with the engineering team. LUMIX Lab feedback. When choosing live streaming, it would be super nice if we could have saved profiles, i.e. YouTube, Twitch, instead of having to add the key site every time. It's definitely good feedback. Can definitely pass that on to the team. I think the way it's designed currently to work is because it requires you, especially with some of the restrictions on who can live stream on YouTube, depending on like age of account and whether you're legacy or whether or not you've hit a certain benchmark. That's why it's done in some cases like that. But as far as like entering in RTMP or RTMPS services now, it's been a little while since I've used it. Maybe I'll use it sometime in the next week or two. Not sure. But I'll pass that on to the team about, is there a way to get like profiles set up there? So Marv says, could you talk about how to use the nicest 709 LUT? Yeah, we can actually, let's segue a little bit into this conversation. So there are LUTs available from us online. I think it's on our business side page, and that is where you'll find things like the nicest 709 LUTs. You'll find all the Vericam looks, things like that. And honestly, the whole design of those LUTs was based back around like the EVA 1 era, or the EVA 1 era, the Vericam, the S1H. So on the one hand, they're a bit dated, by what I think just stylistically people change to, but the nicest 709 is really designed to be kind of like a baseline for working with it. So if you're going to use it, there's a couple different versions on the page. There's a monitoring LUT, and then there's a color grading LUT available. They're different precisions. They're designed for different purposes. Most cases, you're going to want to use the .cube version, especially like if you want to use it in the modern cameras, you're going to use the .cube file. This way you can load it in, and it's higher precision. It's the actual way that it's designed to work with the cameras, and I'll show you what happens if you don't use the right one. But when you go into your editing side, that's where you're just going to have to find that. You're going to have to load that in as like your correction LUT, and it's going to depend on which program you use. But basically, you got to remember that LUTs are only good if you know how you are exposing your footage properly. A LUT is not going to fix your color grade or your exposure problems. So making sure that you expose properly is definitely going to be kind of core. When it comes to exposing with Vlog v Gamut, you want to make sure that your midtones are set to 42 IRE. This way, like, your skin tones fall pretty much in the right spot. And then that's where you would introduce different lighting to accentuate or drop your shadows out. Now, if you're a run and gun filmmaker and you don't really have a lot of time to, do setup lighting, if you're not doing something like this, then yeah, you gotta cheat it a little bit in some cases. Maybe you're gonna overexpose to as bright as you can and use tools like luminance spot meter or zebras to make sure that you don't blow your highlights out. In which case, then you can bring them in post, pull the exposure back down, and apply your LUT on it. But yeah, the 709 LUT is going to function pretty much like most of them. You're going to apply it. You're going to want to do some different tweaks to it. If you're going for ultimate color accuracy, you're going to have to make sure that you're, looking at your vector scopes, things like that, if you're trying to get, color accuracy match between cameras. But yeah, outside of that, I mean, if you want more detailed stuff about how to work with LUTs, I would definitely take a look at other creators out there. They have a much better experience and probably a way better wealth of knowledge on how to work with these different looks than I have. I'm relatively amateur when it comes to color grading. So, McCary says, nice to see you again. Let's get LUMIX Pro service in Canada. Yeah, my G92 was defective after corrupted cards left and right, froze up, waiting forever on parts. I think I did see a note about that. I'll check in with the service team on that one, McCary. Flow for GH780 news. Same with the S5 Mark II and the Mark IIX. I just don't have any updated information for y'all yet on that one. Thank you. Anyone know of a good external flash for real estate photography? I've been struggling to find one. Thanks. Personally, I like the Godox V1 is a nice flash. I'm a bit partial to the Godox stuff. I've just used it for quite a long time. So you just want to make sure that you buy whatever flash you buy. You want to make sure that it's either the Olympus TTL protocol, so it'll be designated with an O, or I think if you're in like Westcott, I think it's M, which is the one that would be multi-system designed for it. So yeah. Where can we buy LUMIX swag? Unfortunately, we don't have LUMIX swag for sale at this time. Context for 709 LUT is that I've loaded it on my S5 too, but I don't feel very punchy or correct. So I'm wondering if I have the incorrect base profile or other things. So that's actually going to segue well into what I want to show you in LUMIX Lab for loading in LUTs onto the camera. But you have to remember that the 709 LUT's not designed to be like an ultra punchy or stylistic look. It's designed to be a 709 conversion. So if it's more that you want something that's more like punchy as far as a look. Like right now I'm using one of Connor McCaskill's LUTs because I really like that kind of like more, you know, bluish more tint to it. And over the period I've been trying a bunch of different looks just to see how they work. You can find other higher, you know, stylistic looks, and you'll see some of that stuff in LUMIX Lab as well that we'll talk about. Doug, great topic. Can you touch on how to apply the LUT used in real-time LUT to the raw files in post? Yes. I don't have, well, maybe I do. I might be able to bring this up while we're switching camera stuff out. All right, good. Yeah, tablet's good. Let me pull up an image and let's pull up this one. There we go. All right, let me resize this screen. Get that one there. And let me go here. Sorry, y'all. I gotta just find where my LUTs are stored. I might not be able to because I don't have that hard drive attached to my computer. All right, we will table this one, and I will come back to that one. I just don't have the hard drive attached on my computer. I just had to clean and rebuild part of my desktop, so it's kind of a mess with drives that I forgot to reattach. So, all right, let's actually just kind of talk about real-time LUT in general. So, clearly right here we can see, like, you know, I've got my S1R Mark II hooked up, and you'll see that in this case, because I'm in video so that I can show more of the functionality, real-time LUT is a pretty solid base tool depending on how you want to use it, right? So I am going to program in one of my function buttons so I can drop into the real-time LUT menu options here. And you'll see that on cameras like the S5 Mark II, Mark IIX, the S1R Mark II, these cameras have the ability to program in one of the buttons to the real-time LUT actual option. So if I do that, this is what will allow me to bring up the different looks. And what you'll notice is that all I'm doing is I'm just selecting the actual look itself. So this is based on the different LUTs. Now, what you maybe don't notice with this, actually you probably wouldn't notice that with this, is that as I'm moving through these, this is also changing the base color profile for what it should be set at. So, you know, if we look at, say, let me find one that I know is vlog based. So if we go to like this one right here, right? If I am selected in with this LUT and I go into the menu and I look at the actual LUT setup here, you'll see that it's a little hard to see, but it says vlog as the profile that's selected there. That means that that LUT is tagging to vlog as the base profile. Now, if you put a LUT onto the camera and just use it, it's gonna most likely default to vlog, which may not be what you want it to do. Now, if I go and I change this to, let's put this one to Roadrunner. If I'd use this one here and I go back into that setting, you'll notice that that is changed to standard because that's what the LUT was built off of. In this case, it's built off standard. So if you've got looks that you've created and you want them to do this same thing where it will automatically be tagging what base profile it's supposed to be using, there's a couple steps you have to go through to get that to work. So to start with, let's actually take a look at my top down here, and I've got my tablet here running LUMIX Lab. We're not going to really go through the full like connection stuff setup, but if we go here, I've got my S1R Mark II. But we're going to look at the LUTs tab here. So right now, these are the default ones that you would see in the app if I go on the device. Now, if I have the camera attached, I can tap on camera, which actually, if I go here, and let me turn my Bluetooth on the camera. Bluetooth function is on. Got it there. Well, let's do this part first. So if I'm looking here and I want to bring a LUT that I've created, right? So there's a little icon up here. That's a little, kind of download arrow. So I can tap on this, and this will let me go into different locations. In this case, I'm in a Google Drive account, and you'll see that I have a couple different LUTs that are saved up here. I've got one that is from 55M, which is a kind of very great LUT that I use all the time. And then you've also got stuff like Asteroid City. This is one from Nick Driftwood. And then I've got some Fujichrome and Kodachrome. These are versions made from Art of Photography. So to start with, I mentioned originally about, actually I'll do it this way. I mentioned originally about you have to be aware of what LUTs you're using because there's different precisions. There's like 17, 33, 65, and they're all going to be different precisions and they're different sizes. On the LUMIX cameras, you should be using 33-point LUTs. And that kind of actually comes into play more specifically if you're going to be doing what we're going to show right now. So as I mentioned, this one right here, this 55M, this is a 65-point LUT. This is what I would use in editing for the actual footage. So I would bring this into Premiere, load this on my timeline, and that's the one that I'm going to use. Now, because I'm going to import this into LUMIX Lab, if I tap on this and I open it, you notice the file format may not be supported. Supports 33 grid 3D LUTs .cube files, or 3D LUTs created in LUMIX Lab, which would be a .zip file. So right here, it's telling me that this is too high, or it's not in a format that the system can read, so it's not going to let me use it. So I hit OK. Nothing happens. But if I come back in here and let's go to Asteroid City. For one, when I click on this, you notice, okay, it brings it up. This is a 33-point LUT. It was named as 33 size to make sure that you know which one's there. I can come in, I can rename it. So we're just going to rename this, take out all the other stuff. And then here is where you set what the style was based on. So I know that this is a Vlog-based color profile. So I'm going to tap on Standard, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to pick Vlog. Now I can hit Set, and what that does is that loads it into the catalog, and you'll see it has the Vlog icon next to it. So now that's Asteroid City, and it's assigned to Vlog. If I do this again, and let's bring in this one. This is Velvia 100. Velvia 100, in my opinion, I use it on standard. There's not really any set for this one, but I want it to assign to standard when I use it. I then tap set, and if I scroll down a little bit, you'll see Fujichrome Velvia 100 designed as standard. So that sets up the LUTs that you input into the system. And that's what allows it to say, hey, I want this to be automatically linking to the right base profile. If you don't do that, everything that you load in will default as Vlog. And the problem with that, as I mentioned, is that when you do that, it's not going to look right. So if we look back here, I want to send those LUTs to the camera now, right? So we've got my camera attached. Let's do LUT transfer. This now triggers the camera and says, hey, I need you to turn Wi-Fi on. In fact, if I go this way, you'll see it's trying to turn Wi-Fi on. Now it says, hey, you want to connect to this. I want to connect to that device. It says the camera. I want to connect to that camera. And you just give it a second. Now we're connected. And you'll see now that under the LUT library, my camera tab is selected. And you'll see if I go through here, I've got a whole bunch of ones already kind of loaded on here. But I can go to device, go down to those ones that I created. I can tap on it, transfer to camera, and I'm going to scroll down, bring this one down below where I was. So this is going to go to set 16, load this LUT, it's sent over. If I scroll down, let's send the Velvia one over. Same thing, we're going to scroll down, and I'm going to go to 17. We're going to save that LUT. Now those have been transferred over. So for this part, that's as simple as it is to connect your LUTs into the camera. So now if we switch over to actually looking at the camera itself, you'll see now when I go into the real-time LUT option, as I scroll through, backlight, clear S, smoky, teal, we're going to get to the 3 fjord ones. And now we're in Asteroid City, and now we've got Velvia. And the thing about this, again, is that if I look at Asteroid City, we've got that one selected. When I go into the actual options here, under LUT, it's set for Vlog. If I come back here and I change it to Velvia, now we go back in again, set for standard. So make sure if you're going to be loading LUTs into your camera, you can 100% still do it the traditional way, which is take it out, put it in the root of the memory card, go onto the camera, and manually load them in. But just remember that when you do that, they're always going to be defaulted to Vlog. So in many cases, that might not be an issue if you're only capturing video and you're only using LUTs for that. But if you're going to use them in a photographic sense, that's what you want to kind of be aware of, that these are being designed to function that specific way. Now, say I want to actually create a LUT with it. Actually, I didn't even think about this. I don't think I have. Yeah, I don't have my scene set up, so I'm not going to be able to do it. I will put a link to the video that I did on how to create LUTs and how to use them for photography. So we'll have a link to that one. And then what I'll probably do is next week I can actually reset up my scenes for it, because yeah, it's not set up right. Because if I go to desktop, that's what it looks like. I never reset up all of my different scenes for it. So all right, let's take a look at some other questions here. Real-time LUT raw in post. So Doug, what I can explain to you at least is if you want to use real-time LUT files or LUT files for stills capture, you would do this in Photoshop. Photoshop has an adjustment layer that allows you to apply a lookup table. So when you do that, the lookup table is going to ask you to pick the 3D LUT that you want to apply to it, and it's going to apply it to the image. What you would end up doing is edit your raw file first. So edit the raw file the way you want your exposure and stuff like that to be, and then you can apply the .cube file to that. The other alternative is you would want to try to convert the LUT into a preset. There are ways to do it, but it's just going to be a little bit of a more involved process. And to my knowledge, I think some of the outlets that do it kind of charge you for it. So it's not the most user-friendly solution to convert a LUT for stills use. But Photoshop has it built in that you can just apply a LUT to a still image if you want to. Let's see here. Good to see you're back. Wanted to know if Lumix will add more recording options for the GH7, more vertical axis pixel for anamorphic, like a 4.3 full sensor 4K in 422 2460p. Probably not, because the higher frame rate options and the open gate options are going to be in HEVC. HEVC is going to be in a 420 10-bit version of it is a much more widely supported version for people to be able to work with in post. That's not saying that 422 and HEVC isn't possible to use that way, but we always stick to the more kind of set standard with it. And a lot of that's more because when you're going to be releasing something or adding a feature or a function to it, you want people to have the widest compatibility with it, not having to struggle or get upset because, you know, maybe I don't have the best graphics card. Maybe I don't have the best support for it. Like I'm on a 3080 Ti on my PC, and I'm fairly certain that 422 10-bit HEVC footage isn't something that I can work with in a hardware accelerated. So I'd have to do all that on CPU. Now, granted, I just upgraded all of this stuff, so it should be better now. But yeah, you probably won't see higher frame rate in 422. It's also been tested by others out there. I think Cam Mackey and Connor McCaskill did a video with the S1R Mark II where they showed our 420 10-bit flexibility versus the 422 10-bit from others, and showing you how much more we can actually get out of it. So some cases you might just not need it unless you're doing like VFX or keying work, but yeah. McCary says, tried Sigma 150 to 600 for the S5 II. The AFC was atrocious compared to the shorter LUMIX lens. Bit the bullet, got another brand. Hope LUMIX figures out buffer, gets true wildlife lens. This probably isn't going to help McCary, but the 150 to 600 doesn't use Sigma's newer motors. The 60 to 600 is way better. It's also, I mean, it's a different range, different general functionality, but the 60 to 600 is a much, much better lens for focusing than the 150 to 600. If I remember right, the 150 to 600 uses the older style motors, which can, you know, in some cases not keep up as well. But the 60 to 600 is miles better in performance. Let's see here. Hi, is there a way to use a false color feature on the S1R Mark II while using a LUT? Yes and no. So with the S1R Mark II, when you want to use, and I think Matt and I talked about this when we launched the camera, when you want to use the false color and you're in real-time LUT, false color is designed for the V-log or the base profile under your LUT. The reason for that is that your LUT may have very different parameters than what the actual exposure should be. So if you're trying to judge your exposure for the image, you should be doing it off the log footage, not visually off what your LUT shows on the camera screen. No camera screen is actually color accurate or of a high enough quality that I would ever judge that you could really actually work with visually the exposures there. So when you turn real-time or false color on, when you're in real-time LUT, it momentarily disables the LUT applied so that you can set your base exposure of whatever profile you're applying the LUT to. Then the LUT gets applied back on. Again, the reason for this is that, one, your LUT was designed based on the exposure most likely being done properly. So if you know that, hey, I expose my images, say, maybe a stop over from what the camera's meter tells you, your false color shows you that because you have to expose the base image properly. Your LUT is only applied on top of that. The other thing is that false color is tuned to each color profile. It's gamma curve, it's image response, all that stuff. So you want to make sure that you're using it on, or the way we've designed it is, it needs to be used on what the actual image is, not what your edits or your tweaks are to it. Otherwise, there would really be no way to calibrate false color to what you've decided as a LUT or what somebody else decided as a LUT. It has to be built off some sort of standard or some sort of standardized curve to give you actually what it's trying to tell you, which is where your sensor's clipping, where your sensor's crushing out shadow. So it does. When you turn it on, it's just you're exposing based off the underlying profile, and then your LUT applies on top of it. So it is working the way it's supposed to, and the way it actually should work for it. So D says, is there a way to record proxy files while recording in 6K OpenGate to an SSD with the S5 IIX for frame IO? Unfortunately, no. The camera can only do proxies up to your main recording being at 4K 60. Outside of that, when you go to 6K or OpenGate, there is no proxy option at this time. Let's see here. L-mount Panasonic is awesome for video work, portraits. Unfortunately, the Sigma lenses are not quite on par for serious sports wildlife. Hopefully, there will be an area of improvement. I would tend to disagree. I think it's just that there's a lot of older lenses out there. Yeah, that there's older options from the lineup that were, prior to the L-mount Alliance, kind of really pushing forward. That's just kind of what happens as, especially with lenses when you have so many of them in the lineup. Like I said, I love the 60-600. I think it's one of the best lenses I've used for longer telephoto shooting. But we're always listening. We're always, you know, looking at seeing what we can do next, and what would fit next within the lineups. So, for LUMIX Lab connection on the S5 IIX, I can't seem to specify a shortcut button to turn Bluetooth on or off. Only Wi-Fi. I've had to menu dive to do it. Am I missing something? No, there is no like quick button to turn Bluetooth on and off. Truthfully, if you leave Bluetooth on and you have it connected just running in the background, it is such a marginal difference in battery consumption. This isn't like it was years ago. I leave it on all the time. The only time I turn it off is if I'm doing stuff maybe where I'm connecting to gimbal or yeah, like anything like that where I gotta plug the USB in. Bluetooth just always stays on my cameras. You can turn, well, let me double check that. We used to be able to turn the connection light off. If it's that the light bugs you. Yeah, you can turn the network connection light off. So this is under the setup menu, network connection light. If you turn that off, you won't have the blue light on the top for Bluetooth connection or Wi-Fi connection. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of it. I would always leave it on. It's a negligible battery difference between on and off. Wi-Fi is the one that will pull more battery out of it. So, is there a way to change the color profile after you input them, or is that just creating a profile in camera and setting a different base profile? So if you go through the process like what I did there, where I loaded it in, you can re-import the same, you know, LUTs over and over again. So if I go, too many buttons to press here. So if I go back in here and let's download one that I did again, let's download Asteroid City again. I can come back in here and I can change it to say standard and set. And now it's applied here and it's just changed what the base profile is. So, Marv, if you're gonna, like, say you want to load a couple of them in there and you know that it works well for, say, standard, for natural, well, those would be kind of wild. But if you want to try it for other ones, you just reload it into the lab app, and then just reselect what the base profile is. It will automatically change it and say, hey, this is, you know, this is based on standard, this is based on vivid, and it'll just run that way for you. So you don't really have to do anything extra. And you can, at that point, like you saw, I would just rename them and say, like, in that case, I'd say Asteroid City Vlog, Asteroid City Standard, Asteroid City like 709. And then, yeah, it just gets you set up there for it. Any solution to be able to use Elencron lights with the GH6? I can trigger Canon flashes, but not the Elencron transmitter. I mean, there shouldn't be anything that's stopping it from triggering as long as the trigger that you have is a center pin trigger. If it's a brand specific trigger, especially I think with some of the later Canon stuff, they may be proprietary mounted. So it's not, like, if I remember right, a number of years ago, Canon removed the center pin from their hot shoe on some cameras. So if your trigger is designed for that, it doesn't have a center pin to trigger, which is what any other camera is going to need with that trigger. Yeah, you should be able to connect with it, though. And don't worry, this is just water. What's so special about the Vericam's image? The S1R2 is going to be incredibly capable of capturing that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Highland Falls, please implement the option to batch select and transfer LUTs in LUMIX Lab. I had to transfer 20 LUTs to my S5 IIX and it was a pain. I hear ya. I've asked about that one for a while. I would love to be able to do batch transfers. Alan says, that was the same question there. Nomadic, main point is to try and get full sensor coverage with better color space, even if that means only shooting in 4K. Need more vertical pixels and 4:3 options. Well, you had mentioned on the GH7. The GH7 has 4:3 full sensor options. They're higher than 4K. But going down, 422 versus 420 is not color space, so it's not going to change that. If you're shooting in V-Log V-Gamut, you're shooting in V-Gamut for your color space. Your chroma subsampling is different. And again, I would recommend Pneumatic. I would recommend taking a look at Connor McCaskill and Cam Mackey's videos from the S1R2 when they're out in the, I think it was in the Grand Teton region, where they showed you that really the end result difference between 420 10-bit and 422 10-bit is nowhere near as much as people make it out to be or think it is. So I understand wanting that stuff, but not all of that stuff actually makes sense with the cameras, either from processing or thermals or return on, you know, what it takes to record those things. So yeah, that's kind of where it is. David says, can you talk about the strengths for video of the camera body having an optical low pass filter and global shutter? I mean, yeah, we can kind of talk about that. Optical low pass filters, they soften your image ever so slightly to reduce things like moire or aliasing in an image, or false coloring showing up. Modern era, they were much more common in lower resolution sensors. As we get higher and higher resolution sensors, they become not as required. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that they're not required, so don't set the pitchforks and light the torches on me yet. What I'm saying is that in the vast majority of the world, things like YouTube, a lot of video making now, you can hit a point in resolution or downsampling where moire is pretty strongly suppressed without the need to go to a low pass filter. A low pass filter is not going to give you like the quote unquote cinematic look. There are too many other factors involved with that. Lenses, the character of the lens, the recording mode, the frame rate, the motion cadence, all of those things have more effect typically than a low pass filter. Your autofocus can have more of an effect than a low pass filter does. That's not to say that there are certain situations where they're definitely relevant. So the S1H has a low pass filter. That camera has an amazing image. That's the Netflix certified camera from, or Netflix Post Technology Alliance certified camera from us. And it's great for that. I think the reality is that if you look at the vast majority of what users want, they want sharper over soft. At least that's what the current trend tends to be. But we listen to all the different aspects of the industry. You know, what is it people actually need? What is it that they actually want? And try to build products based off that. When it comes to global shutter, from a photographic standpoint is cool. You can shoot at really fast electronic shutter speeds with flash triggering. You don't have rolling shutter, and in video that's nice, you don't have rolling shutter. But to date, no commercially available global sensor camera is pushing any greater dynamic range than like last gen APS-C cameras. They're just not there yet. Global sensors, if you think about a sensor or pixel, you have this, say this is the pixel in its full height. We're ignoring the different axes of it, but just imagine this is the pixel. You had FSI sensors, is older technology, where all your wiring and stuff is up here. So light's coming in from the top, and all your wiring's up here, so light has to go through that, bounce through all the wiring and stuff, and then it hits the diode. Then we went to BSI. BSI is all your electronics are now on the back side, so they're back here. So light comes in, hits the diode, and it's not having to go through a bunch of electronics. Then you went to different things like stacked sensors. Stacked sensors now take this well, so if my thumb is where the diode is and the electronics are here, now it goes like this, because now I've got memory and things like that stored back here, as well as the communication. Shorter well, worse dynamic range, because it's not as capable of saturating the pixel. When you go to global, you remove all that stuff, kind of. When you go to global, you shrink it even further, because now you got to add another pipeline from each pixel to read out independently, not based on lines. So the more tech you apply that way, all things being equal, your pixel well, so the saturation that you can get gets smaller and smaller and smaller, which is why we see a rash of, you know, cameras that have lower dynamic range than previous generation models. Until someone can come along and come up with a new iteration or a new way that that stuff works, that's just how it is. And global shutter, it's cool, but it's just not technologically ready, I think, for consumer side use case. It's not to say that really high-end cinema cameras like some of the Reds and all that stuff can't, you know, produce beautiful images. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that there's negatives to doing it compared to that. And they all just have different effects that way. So, Madman, is there a way to clean the inside screen of the viewfinder? My S52X have a drop of something, maybe grease, that won't go away since my last visit to the beach about 2 weeks ago. It's probably not grease. Actually, I can guarantee it's not grease because there's nothing behind there that would have grease in it. Madman, basically the only way I know that you can do that and do it correctly is to send it into service. So... Marv says, yeah, I have Bluetooth on all the time with my S52. Never seen a drop in battery. Yeah. David, I have Bluetooth on the GH7, but the sync app fails to connect with the camera to live stream. It's always failed at the time of the handshake. GH7... I think GH7... Let me just double check here. I don't know why I'm trying to type around my water. On the GH7, who is that one? David, GH7, stop using the Sync app. Use LUMIX Lab. LUMIX Sync is no longer the app you need to use for the 7. We updated that, so. Harry, Sean, could you please show us how to assign and save a LUT to a My Photo Style slot? Yes, I can. So, we're going to go on to the camera here. So, if I want to create a particular look, right? So, we're going to go over here and I'm going to go to, My Photo Style 1. Here, I'm going to look through and I'm going to say, okay, well, which color profile do I want this based off? In this case, let's say standard. Scroll down, and you'll see an option here to apply a LUT. So for here, I can press the focus mode button, and then now I can jump through and pick which LUT I want. In this case, I'm going to pick Roadrunner, and then I got this set up here. Now, if I really want to go crazy with it, I can start tweaking the intensity of the LUT. So I can tweak it, say I want like 90% on this one. Or that, say I want to add another LUT on top of it. So say I want to add, make something real crazy with it. Say I want to do, let's add urban and street onto that one. So I can make these changes here. And as I come through, I can turn it off and see what it does to the image. So say like, okay, this one looks all right, but it's not as contrasty. This shifts the colors around. So like say, cool, this is how I like it. This is how I want that image to look. Now from here, I just hit display, save current settings. In this case, My Photo Style 1. And then I can press display and I can change the name. So we'll just change this name to 1A, set, and save. So now, if I come in and say I use the quick menu, if I come through here, and I go to my one, you'll see it says My Photo Style 1A. If I go back to LUT, you'll see that I was on the other one. So that's how easy it is to save a look that you want to use yourself. You don't have to do anything really special with it. You can layer your different LUTs. You have different controls over shifting the intensity of the different LUTs and applying them in different layers. So it's a pretty straightforward way of doing it, I think. Can you use LUMIX Lab to manually focus? That's a good question. Honestly, I haven't used LUMIX Lab in a little while recently because I've been here in the studio, so I haven't really needed to use the app for a little bit. But I can double check really quickly here. I just hit that to connect. So let me get right back to that one though. 12Y films. Oh, I see what was wrong. The LUT I was using was not placed on top of V-Log during real-time LUT. That's why it wasn't turning off the LUT and showing me false color exposure. Gotcha. Gotcha. Love me some low-pass filters. Yeah, there's definitely a huge side where low-pass filters are great. GH7 has very limited 4.3 recording options. We need more options in 4.3 and ProRes, MP4, MOV, preferably full sensor coverage, 4K for added vertical height. But that's again, no matter, that's what I'm not understanding, because you've got full resolution height in it. If it's just down that you want higher frame rates, that's a different conversation. But you have full sensor coverage in 5.8K, 5.9K, whatever it is. The full resolution there. So, global shutter is one thing, but what about the mythical organic sensor? I love the 4:3 aspect ratio, wondering why we don't ever see a full frame with 4:3 sensor. Do you mean like an actual like 4:3 in a full frame sensor's height dimensions? I doubt you'd ever see that. Actually, I can almost guarantee you'd never see that. That's the 4:3 ratio when you go into a 35mm sensor, so a full frame sensor. The 4:3 literally just gets cropped on the sides, and you're at the same thing. So it wouldn't really make sense to isolate just to 4:3 as far as the physical sensor aspect ratio goes, because it would be the same effect as taking a 3:2 and just telling the camera, hey, shoot in 4:3, which you can do on the cameras. You can shoot in 4:3 and your raw file gets tagged properly for your editing software, so it shows you in 4:3. Yeah, I'm trying to never see it. It's most likely manufacturing. It's kind of the same reason why I know a lot of people talk about wanting to see square sensors and stuff like that, but it doesn't make manufacturing sense to make a square sensor. There's too much waste in the production process at that point. You don't get as many sensors out of a wafer that you would in 3:2 or 4:3 for the smaller sensors. I think this is the same thing that like Intel and Nvidia and AMD and all these companies go through when you look at how semiconductors or sensors are manufactured. It just doesn't make sense to build them that way. All right, let's take a look here. So we've got yes, the where was the other question? That other question that I was looking at is, can you use LUMIX Lab to manually focus? So LUMIX Lab does not have the ability to manual focus at this time. I just confirmed that. So Brandon says that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's a cool idea, but honestly, it almost always just comes down to the cost of manufacturing stuff. GH7, we do get the open gate recording options and a 4:3. Full vertical height options. ProRes doesn't have 4:3. Okay, I think I understand what you're saying, Nomadic, is that you don't... So, we have the full resolution 4:3 ratio, which is a full sensor height and width. If you want to go to faster frame rates, it has to crop to get, 50, 60 frames per second. Full frame at 4K wouldn't change the readout. So you'd still be at, most likely you'd still be at resolution or frame rate limitations there. And ProRes, to my knowledge, I just don't think ProRes is ever going to come to that way. The throughput and heat and stuff like that would be probably too high. Ideally, we can get an oversampled 4K option at 60p so we get the dual gain too. No, you wouldn't necessarily. Doesn't necessarily work that way. But the GH7 has a pretty well-rounded set. But yeah, we can always bring more combinations up to the rest of the team. Also just picked up an S1R2, loving the sensor for photography. Can't wait to pair it with the Sigma 150-600. Yeah, the one thing I would just say is, like I said about to Macari earlier, the 150-600 is a great lens. I don't want to say that it's not a great lens, but the 60-600 definitely has the better focus motors between those two lenses. The 60-600 is, I think, newer as well. So if you're doing faster action sports, fast action wildlife, stuff like that, the 60-600 is going to keep up a little bit better than the 150-600. So just keep that in mind with that lens. And obviously, as always, make sure your firmwares are updated on the lenses as well. Yeah. So, wow, we're already at 3 o'clock. So, yeah, that was a little bit of a, I guess, kind of all over the place stream today. I did at least get through showing you how to do the real-time LUT stuff. I am gonna put together a piece about how to do how to work with LUT files or .cube files in something like Photoshop. As I mentioned, I just didn't have my programming set up right in Streamlabs today. I will have that ready for next week. So that everyone can, we can actually go through that and I can walk you through it, because I think that's going to be a pretty worthwhile, even if it's only for 10-15 minutes that we talk about it. But otherwise, I do have to wrap the stream up today. We did start an hour earlier, or an hour later than normal, so I appreciate everyone still tuning in. Joys of having to go run around before having on the streams. I just didn't time things right this morning. But we will be back again next Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern, so our normal time for LUMIX Live. Be sure to tune in on this channel on the 13th. Check out our other live stream that's ready to go. And other than that, I will see everybody next week. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope you have a great weekend. Get out there, create some cool stuff, play around with LUTs, go try to create a whole bunch of them, load them into the camera. You got a tool now on how to get them properly loaded in. Other than that, take care, everybody. See you later.